I can't believe it took me this long to play Chrono Trigger. I've heard endless praise for this game for some time now, so my expectations were already high. What I didn't expect was for the game to exceed those already high expectations. Chrono Trigger was released in 1995 for the Super Nintendo and published by Squaresoft. Chrono Trigger featured an all-star development team with designers Hironobu Sakaguchi, creator of Final Fantasy, Yuji Horii, creator of Dragon Quest, and Akira Toriyama, character designer of Dragon Quest and author of the Dragon Ball manga series. Half of the staff involved worked on Final Fantasy VI, with the other half being newcomers. The version I played for this video was a 2008 Nintendo DS release. Chrono Trigger centers around a young boy named Chrono, who's essentially a blank slate for the player. Luca, an inventor and Chrono's friend, and Marle, the princess of Guardia, join Chrono in the opening. The game begins with Chrono setting off to the Millennial Fair in town to see Luca's new invention. While looking around, Chrono bumps into Marle, and they introduce themselves and agree to spend time together at the fair. When they reach Luca, they're asked to try out her new super-dimensional warp teleporter. Chrono is successfully sent through, but when Marle teleports, the machine reacts to her pendant, causing it to malfunction and send them all back in time. Chrono and Luca get separated from Marle, so they set out to find her and return home. Not only do they need to contend with the threats in this time period, but they need to keep the timeline from changing to the worst. After they return to their own time period for the first time, they stumble upon more time gates that send them further into the future and past. The future is revealed to be a desolate wasteland, ravaged by a being known as Lavos, causing the end of the world. Armed with this knowledge, they set out to explore each time period, gather allies throughout time, and prevent this global catastrophe. They succeeded in presenting Lavos as this force of nature, existing throughout time and having an impact on each era in some important way. You see firsthand early in the game the total destruction Lavos is capable of, giving you your primary motive to prevent these events from happening. On a smaller scale, each era contains a central conflict the party must contend with. These conflicts are a result of the deep interpersonal relationships between characters. Emotional stories are told that not only personalize the people, but also characterize the world. A character like Robo was created to obey and serve those who activated them, without being able to think for themselves. Robo is shocked that Chrono's party wishes to treat them as a friend, rather than a tool. Robo gains a new sense of self as they begin to find meaning and abandon their original purpose of assisting in machine domination. Frog, a once modestly proud knight, must learn to regain his honor after losing a dear friend and being turned into a frog in battle. Chrono Trigger spends the whole game introducing and fleshing out characters by sharing stories like these. These stories further benefit from the game's excellent pacing. Your party shows character growth by reacting to the world, or just by talking to each other, providing constant progression due to its ingenious story design structure. Chrono Trigger's story structure was revolutionary and is still a masterclass example of how to tell a cohesive story while giving the player complete freedom when, where, and how they progress. The opening sequence is linear. It's just long enough to introduce you to the game's many elements. It sends you back in time to the Middle Ages, introducing you to how time travel, combat, and the other game mechanics work. You're then sent to the future that provides you with an endgame goal, to stop Lavos. Once you leave the future, you're brought to the end of time, a hub area connecting each time period to one another. From then on, the game opens up, freely allowing you to explore the current available portals and eras. Because these portals send you to and from fixed points, you still need to explore each time period to find new objectives that further open up new areas. It's able to focus on smaller stories centered around resolving a single era's conflict with the involvement of key characters. Exploring results in new objectives that can be started and completed at any time. Many times, multiple branching paths are available to the player that provide a linear narrative with dynamic gameplay. Due to the time travel story, multiple players can complete objectives in different orders while being told the same story. I continued to be impressed when using time travel to progress through the game. Rather than being confined and handheld through a precise path, You're given complete player choice to time travel between any era at will, and use the passage of time to influence events and solve clever puzzles. Your actions make meaningful changes to the era you're in, while also invisibly preparing you for the endgame battle with Lavos by recruiting more party members and getting stronger gear and stats. So much of the gameplay is tightly woven into and directly motivated by the story. The narrative is located in the dungeons. No longer is there this disconnect where the story stops as you complete a dungeon, just for it to resume at the end. Instead, your actions within the dungeons are directly motivated by the narrative. Instead of walking through a dark cave just to get to the other side, you're breaking Chrono out of a castle from wrongful imprisonment, confronting a dark mage in his haunted lair while sharing banter with his underlings, and opening a sealed passage in order to find food for starving people. Dungeons are a real-time scene for the story to unfold. Side quests deserve just as much praise. For one, the side quests are story quests. Each side quest focuses on a character's development and ties up loose ends in each era. These scenarios actively prepare you for the later content. It's worth coming back to visit old areas for new dialogue. You get to see what you've changed in the environment and in the people. I happily seeked out all of the optional content because I knew I'd be rewarded with more story, learning more about the interesting characters in my party. By the time you find and repair the Epoch, a time-traveling flying ship, the game opens up one final time. The Epoch unlocks the last bit of freedom needed to time travel to any period and disembark at any location, completely opening the rest of the game's world and giving you the opportunity to pursue any remaining optional quests before confronting Lavos. Unique to Chrono Trigger is the ability to confront Lavos at any time, once you've discovered the end of time. Defeating Lavos, regardless of how much time you put in, is a tough fight. Understanding the threat Lavos presents through gameplay gives context to your actions in each era. Every battle and every quest is to gain the strength to successfully defeat Lavos. Given that your chances of defeating Lavos early are slim to none, it gave me a surprisingly relaxed feeling. Time travel let me take in the story at my own pace, and provided me more freedom to choose when I felt prepared to take on the game's final challenge. The more story and quests you complete, the better off you'll be, incentivizing you to simply play and enjoy the game. Choosing when to defeat Lavos will result in multiple endings. Depending on what quests you find, finish, or omit completely at the time you defeat Lavos, results in 12 endings, with an extra 13th ending in the DS release. So much creativity and consideration went into the game's multiple endings, and even the inclusion of New Game Plus, which was novel for the time. New Game Plus carries over your items and stats, and lets you beat the game much earlier than on a first playthrough. This makes it much easier to pick and choose which main and side quests do and don't get completed, resulting in more endings. With so many endings dependent on your actions, it becomes a form of fun dialogue players can have with the developers, seeing how the world changes based on your actions or lack thereof. The world of Chrono Trigger is quite small, but it never felt that way due to exploring locations in multiple eras. Areas are visited and revisited. An area like the Millennial Fair I thought would be one and done, but you revisit it multiple times for minigames and quests. The world becomes a character of its own as you learn about the global scale changes over the entire expanse of time. A quality world has been created that acts and reacts to your actions throughout the story. Its small size becomes a positive quality, and even a convenience alongside the fact that there are no overworld combat encounters. No overworld encounters keeps the world open and incentivizes exploration, going hand in hand with the game's open progression. You can expediently travel back and forth through a compact world, and avoid repeated combat through commonly traversed areas. Nothing bars you from doing things in a particular order, but areas with enemy encounters may silently guide the player into an intended order through their challenge. Players can choose which order to do things based on the difficulty they are willing to take on, allowing another area of depth through player choice. I can't talk about the combat without first talking about its phenomenal presentation. It's 1995, and gone are random encounters. Every enemy is shown naturally in their surroundings, moving and animating. All encounters have a reason. Wild animals will rustle in the bushes and leap out for an ambush. Trash lays scattered in the sewers that attract all kinds of monsters. And security systems patrol areas for intruders. Some enemies are reused and recolored, but I'll take that trade when they've never felt more alive in a game released in 1995. There's still plenty of enemy variety. The amount of animations and interactions used to make enemies feel alive takes away any criticism I might have had over reused enemies. There's no battle transition. Battles take place in the same location they start, making each battle unique. The only time there's a screen transition is if you run from battle, because enemies need to be removed from the screen. Both enemies and party members will passively or actively during attacks move around the area. There are skills in Chrono Trigger that do damage to multiple enemies in a small proximity or in a line, rather than single target or all enemies. This combined with the varied locations and enemy movement create fun and engaging strategies, like attacking a group of enemies lined up on a staircase, or timing an attack when enemies have grouped up together for maximum damage. Enemies also benefit from their location, as some can counterattack or have access to stronger attacks when near other enemies. This changes up your priorities when attacking. Enemies will interact with each other in a realistic manner, some in ways that can even benefit the player. Snakes will eat frogs to gain health, security systems will target anything that moves, including rats, and the winged ape enemy will throw other rock enemies at the player for more damage. Chrono Trigger features an active time battle featured in Final Fantasy VI, but updated to feel a lot more responsive. In Final Fantasy VI, once a character's ATB gauge fills, you can select an action to be performed that then enters a queue. This delay between your selection and execution must be considered in order to maximize your effectiveness of your turns. In Chrono Trigger, once you select an action, that action is immediately performed. This updated active time battle makes your actions feel much more responsive, as instead of queuing up an action, you can immediately use or choose to wait to use an action. It rewards you for fast menu navigation, as the quicker you can select an action, the quicker the bars reset for the next. Additional actions can be selected during attack animations if the bar is already filled by the time the first action is selected. The ATB system also makes speed a more dynamic stat by adjusting how fast the bar fills, rather than just who goes first. You'll choose 3 active party members at a time, each with their own unique skills and magic affinity. Chrono Trigger has a unique and enjoyable battle system. When in a battle, you need to be aware of your party and the enemy's health, along with their space and proximity to one another. I felt so clever using Chrono's Cyclone to hit 2 or 3 enemies at the same time, or using Luca's Flamethrower to hit multiple enemies in a line. There's a risk versus reward in waiting to attack until you can hit multiple enemies with one skill, or if you should attack immediately in order to get more moves out. Certain party combinations have less proximity effects and more single target or all target attacks, but as you play through the story, you'll be swapping party members, learning new skills, and combo techs. Dual and triple combo techs use both or all the character's meter simultaneously for a strong attack. You'll constantly be learning new attacks, making this mechanic really fun to experiment with. It also adds a layer of risk and balance, as these abilities have really strong effects, but you'll have less flexibility as you'll be using multiple characters' actions for a single attack. Proximity attacks are such an interesting addition to turn-based combat. I like what's here, but I like to think about how much more they could have done to expand on the idea. We have moves that hit enemies close to one another, hit enemies in a straight line, or hit enemies close to the player. Adding attacks that manipulate player or enemy movement would add a fun layer of strategy, strengthened by the fact that each battle's in a unique location. Having the player or enemies interact with the environment would also be cool to see. Imagine seeing a visual indication of an enemy attack and using Chrono's Sword Strike to attack through another enemy in order to move him out of the way, or use Isla's strength to push an enemy into lava, or using one of Luca's many gadgets to cause an earthquake or avalanche that drops rocks on an enemy location. Giving enemies the same kind of tools could further deepen or strategize even the most basic enemy encounters. This would also make the choice of which party members to bring more important, as you need to consider what combination of characters cover a wide variety of space when attacking or dodging. While you're rewarded for fast menu navigation, they could do more to make it easier. For one, the tech category is too broad. Your options are attack for basic attack, tech for all other actions including skills, magic, and combo tech, and items. Because many actions are housed under the tech category, it becomes hard to efficiently navigate to preferred actions because you need to scroll through so many options first. If instead the categories were attack and tech, magic, combo tech, and items, then it would better spread out your available actions. Skills are stretched across the entire screen, so they may have been able to divide that space in order to have the amount of scrolling, but with the small DS screen, it's probably best they kept it the way it is. One of my favorite aspects about Chrono Trigger is the way it respects the player's time. The game is hassle-free, it's just you, a few enemy encounters, no overworld encounters, and fun boss fights. No grinding was needed during the entirety of my playthrough, but the option is still there if players are struggling. This de-emphasis on experience helps to highlight the strategic elements of combat, rewarding you for smart play. It's clear they chose quality over quantity, especially when it comes to the game's boss encounters. The bosses were a highlight for sure. They were all fun and required some variation of strategy. Regular encounters can be easy in a few places, and could do with very minor dynamic difficulty adjustments, but it's generally consistent. It's shorter than most RPGs, but in the best way. It's streamlined, knows what it wants to be, and removes any grinding typical of the genre. Not only is Chrono Trigger exceptionally animated, but it's exceptionally detailed as well. Environments are striking. No areas feel the same as the last. Despite each era taking place in the same overworld, nothing is reused. Each area is filled to the brim with character and detail, separating it from the last. The only visual change I would have liked is for each time gate to better show where it's sending you. When you get to the end of time, you're met with multiple gates to new eras. Without an image of which era was which, I found myself entering a portal just to go through the wrong portal, and have to travel back through another. Once you get the epoch, it accompanies each time period with an image of that era's overworld on the top screen, along with a clock dial on the bottom. This was helpful when remembering where and when each era was. If something similar was added to the End of Time's gates, it would have helped a visual learner like myself navigate the early game much faster. I can't understate just how good of a soundtrack Chrono Trigger has. Composed by Yasunori Mitsuda, with a few tracks by Nobuo Uematsu, Chrono Trigger's music expresses a variety of memorable songs to match its variety of eras. Generally, a lot of RPG games have town, forest, and castle themes that aren't bad, but by design don't tend to leave a lasting impression to me personally. Chrono Trigger takes those respective themes and creates really catchy and memorable songs that stand beside the more high-profile songs. I caught myself engaged with just about all of the music in the game, and I couldn't possibly have any complaints for the stellar soundtrack, other than to ask for more of it. The Super Nintendo, DS, and PC releases of Chrono Trigger are all solid with mostly minor differences between them, so I'll mostly discuss the content differences between them. Chrono Trigger was first released on the Super Nintendo in 1995, followed by the PlayStation 1 port as part of Final Fantasy Chronicles, which saw extended load times when compared to the Super Nintendo original. In 2008, the Nintendo DS version released that was the first to include a noteworthy amount of new content. This version includes a revised translation, the Arena of Ages, and 3 new areas. The Arena of Ages is a side mode that has you raise and battle monsters against other opponents or other players through wireless connection. This mode is very forgettable, as you can see all it has to offer in around 10 minutes. From there, it's just repeated auto battles with your monster that you can influence with items, or send out to wait in real time to make them stronger. Lost Sanctum, Dimensional Vortex, and Time's Eclipse are new areas added to this release. Lost Sanctum adds various side missions that aren't as relevant to the story, but are simple if not more ways to provide you with extra things to do. The Dimensional Vortex and Time's Eclipse areas are added right after beating the game for the first time. Dimensional Vortex adds 3 dungeons and 4 new super bosses. Unfortunately, a portion of each dungeon are just reused rooms from earlier in the game. On the bright side, the rest of these dungeons include new and restored content cut from the original release, and some of the most challenging and fun boss fights found in the game. Once all 3-dimensional vortex dungeons have been completed, Time's Eclipse opens up to the hardest boss in the game, leading to the 13th ending. These new bosses are the most challenging content in the game, yet still balanced, requiring no grinding to defeat post-beating Lavos. In addition to new content, the DS version adds a ton of resources that essentially make it an unlockable, comprehensive in-game guide, detailing lists for character skills, enemies, items, endings, and even treasure locations. It has an option for DS mode, optimizing the screen real estate for the DS's dual screens. It moves commands to the bottom screen to be input either with buttons or touch control. The classic UI remains in case you prefer the original game's one-screen battle interface. In addition, the DS release features a self-completing map that was a huge quality of life addition, making the navigation even easier. While the overall quality of the DS's additional content is mixed, it's the version with the most content, and anything you don't want to do can be skipped. The additional bosses in the Dimensional Vortex and Time's Eclipse dungeons were a highlight, and dealing with the short amount of reused content to see it was well worth it. The 2011 mobile and 2018 PC ports dropped the Arena of Ages side mode, but kept the other additional content added in the DS release. The PC port released to mixed reviews due to it simply being a port of the mobile version. However, since its release, Square Enix has updated the PC version multiple times, improving its overall reception and making it a solid, accessible way to play. I'm astounded that Chrono Trigger wasn't more influential in the genre and in the games that came after it. This should have been, and still should be, the new standard. Chrono Trigger streamlined and removed the grinding process, while keeping strategy and fun, challenging encounters. The RPG genre is notorious for being rigid, long, and linear, but Chrono Trigger proved that you can open up your game in a natural way, and give the players an open experience in an RPG that doesn't overstay its welcome at all. It has an emotional story with deep, introspective characters, a detailed world, and an amazing, memorable soundtrack, paired with its quality combat, mechanics, and boss battles. Chrono Trigger is truly a game worthy of recognition and inspiration in game design, and more importantly, worthy of your time. Thanks for watching to the end. Consider subscribing to the channel for more videos like this, and subscribe to the second channel for live stream uploads. I live stream on Twitch, and I also have a Discord. If you really like my content, please consider sending a tip on Ko-fi. All tips go back into my content by purchasing games for future videos or live streams. Links to all of these platforms can be found in the description below.